Hi, it's John Taffer from Bar Rescue. Did you know the second building in America was a tavern? When I built my new restaurant franchise concept, Taffer's Tavern, I thought back to the roots of what makes a tavern, timeless character, all while delivering an unbelievably delicious food and beverage experience. That paired with my 40-plus years in the industry provides a clear roadmap to success. Do you have what it takes to be a Taffer's Tavern franchisee? If so, I'd love to hear from you. Visit franchise.tafferstavern.com.
Holidays are here, and so is fashionable fitness. Gift yourself a Samsung Galaxy Z Flip 3 5G, a phone that folds in half to literally stand on its own. Pair it with the Galaxy Watch 4 for ultimate wellness and wow factor. Check health stats, flex personal records. Over 90 activities can be tracked, like biking, swimming, golfing, and more. Invest in yourself with tech made to crush goals. Holidays open up with Galaxy. Shop it all at Samsung.com. 5G connection and availability may vary. Check with carrier. Products sold separately.
Hey everyone, this is the Almost World Podcast. Bringing to you mind-blowing interviews with guests from all over the world. So settle down, relax, and enjoy the show. Oh yeah, by the way, if you like the podcast, please support Elmo's World Podcast on Patreon. Your support is what helps the podcast improve more and more. Welcome to Elmo's World Podcast. This is Elmo, and I'm with my friend José. He's from Portugal, and yeah, hey man, how are you doing?
I'm fine, great to be with you.
Awesome. And can you introduce yourself? And give us a sort of a background on who you are about in terms of your philosophical journey.
So I'm from Portugal. I was born in the distant year of 1982. By now is a distant year, and all my life I've been a Catholic. That is basically my education, my family education. And when I was a little kid, my main interests were zoology, to study animals and so forth, and dinosaurs. Mm-hmm. And because of that, when I was reading about dinosaurs, one thing is absolutely clear about them, is that they no longer exist. And in the way, the fact that the dinosaurs no longer exist goes against the description that we have on Genesis, on the Bible. Okay, so and as I have said, all my life I was a Catholic, and because of that, when I was still a little kid, a teenager, I also developed another interest that was to study the relationships between science and religion. Okay, and when I was 20 years old, an author, American physicist named Frank Tipler. Do you know Frank Tipler?
Oh, well, I've heard of him, but I guess I'm not really knowledgeable of the particular.
Okay, so a book from a guy the American physicist that is named Frank Tipler, who published the book, and the book was translated into Portuguese. Mm-hmm. The book is named The Physics of Immortality. Mm-hmm. In Portuguese, the title is A Física de Imortalidade. Mm-hmm. And the physics of and Frank Tipler and John Barrow are the great proponents of the entropic cosmological principle. Mm-hmm. And the entropic cosmological principle is a way of thinking about according to which we can conclude certain aspects about the very universe that surrounds us, mm-hmm. From the basic step that we exist. So we exist. What can we conclude about it? About the existence, about mm-hmm. the universe. Mm-hmm. And because of that, both of them are physicists, use a lot of philosophical concepts on their theory. Basically, and in their second book, so their first book is The Entropic Cosmological Principle, mm-hmm. from 1986. And the book from Tipler that I was referring, that is The Physics of Immortality, is from 1994, I believe.
I beg your pardon. Can you pronounce it again? Like
the entropic cosmological principle.
Okay, entropic cosmological principle. Oh, awesome. Oh, anthropic, like the
entropic, yes.
Okay.
So, in the second book, that is The Physics of Immortality, Frank Tipler uses a lot of philosophical concepts, including, for instance, the concept of eternity, that he goes to refer to Boethius. And, for instance, he defines God following a definition of a theologian, a German theologian, that is called, I believe, Paul Tillich. Tillich or Tillich? Tillich. I don't know how to say it. Tillich or Tillich. He's a German, so.
All right.
So, and what he says is that, according to Paul Tillich, God is not one being, is not a being, is not just one more being in everything that exists, but it is the ground of being. It is being itself. Okay, and because of that, in those years, I found out another author that is called Henry Pariu Owen. That is this guy. That he has a book called The Concepts of Deity. And when he is talking about Paul Tillich, what he says is that in a way the conception that is operating in his thought is only the very conception that all classical theists maintain throughout the history of thought. Okay, God is not just one more being, but it is in a way the being itself, or as Aquinas would say, ipsum esse per se subsistens. So the self-subsisting being. Okay, in that, as I have said, allow me to discover another author that is called Henrique Coret. This guy is the a Thomist from the 20th century, of course, a transcendental Thomist. So what he tried to do is to make a dialogue between Aquinas and Heidegger and Hegel and Kant. So mainly these four authors. And what he maintains is that the conception that operates in Aquinas is the most rich conception of God that the human thought has acquired. So so when some years ago I pursued university studies in philosophy. I made my bachelor degree. After that, I made a master's degree. My dissertation was about Peter Geach and Barry Miller mainly. What those authors do is that they try to translate the metaphysics of Aquinas, of existence and being, in sort of an analytical form, or to make room for Aquinas' metaphysics of being in analytical philosophy. And after that, I'm trying to do my PhD. My PhD is about the consequent argument of Peter van Inwagen. That is an argument that tries to show that the determinism and free will are incompatible. So basically, that is it. That is my life. It's a boring life.
Awesome! Wow, you're taking a PhD on philosophy. That's the dream. All right. Well, I guess let's start though. So you were raised as a Catholic, right? And yes. How do you think being raised in a Catholic family has impacted your belief system right now? Because have you sort of gone through a phase where you questioned Christianity or theism and tried to go to the skeptic route and to really test the grounds of your...
So as I have said, all my life I've been a Catholic. So my education was basically in that sort of beliefs. When I was 10 years old, something like that, as I have said, I read a lot of dinosaurs. All the kids do that, right? All the kids do that. And because of that, I in that instance, I had to reconsider in a way my beliefs, because in the Bible, the description of the act of creation by God does not refer dinosaurs. Okay, the world is created in 6 days, and that's it. The human beings appear almost immediately, and so in that moment, you can say that my faith was a little bit shaken. Okay, what I since that moment, what I try to do is to, in a way, reevaluate my faith, and constantly to reevaluate, and to, in a way, to think about it, and to think about it with the help of with the best help that I can get. And that best help that I can get is, in a way, the history of philosophy itself. Because, in a way, the greatest minds of the history of thought, for instance, Aquinas or Augustine or Saint Bonaventure or Dom Scotus and all that, what they have tried to do, in a way, was try to articulate their faith in a way that is a never-ending path. But in a way, it's what I am trying to do.
All right. Well, cool. Well, let's start with God first, right? In terms of theism, what makes you certain that there is a God out there, right? And what are your guys like? And your responses to the challenges, like, for example, like there is actually no evidence of a God, or that it's that God's nature, however people introduce it, is ends up being contradictory, or so. What are your responses to that?
Well, I'll say that in a way we have all left out. God appeared. A professor of mine once wrote a book where along the way he wrote the following: if God appeared like 100 Himalayas and said to everyone, "Here I am," don't ever so all the discussions will have ended with that. But that's now how God shows himself in the world. We have to, in a way, God is a hidden God. So we all have doubts, and we can never be absolutely certain almost of anything in our own lives. But in a way, we have to live it. We have to live our lives, and it's, in a way, this sort of existential bias. I believe that Kierkegaard is a great help, because what Kierkegaard has told us is that we have to take a leap. In these questions that are more dramatically for our life, we have to take a leap, and the most important leap is basically a leap of faith. So, and when we make that leap, what we say is that I believe in someone that someone would grab me when I'll make that leap, and that will not allow us to fall. So I'll say that in this sort of existential bias, the most important thing is to make a leap. But if we inquire the question that you have asked in a way that is more, I'll say, conceptually oriented, I'll say that the following, for instance, Aquinas, we have to start with our own experience of the world. And Aquinas gives us a lot of arguments. Basically, we can say that everybody knows the 5 ways, for instance. But what we can say is that following Aquinas, we can say that, well, in order to explain the existence of any object whatsoever that we have in the world, we have to ascend to a certain level of reality that is not relative, that is not conditioned, but it is unlimited and absolute. So I'll say that the best argument that we can have, and all the arguments are basically manifestations of this principle, is that in order to really explain the existence of our own experience, we have to ascend to another plane of reality, that it is unconditioned, in that it is ontologically simple. Okay, for instance, in the metaphysics of Aquinas, everything that exists in our old world is composite of essence and existence. And because of that, it does not exist by itself. It needs to be caused by something else. Since we cannot go to infinite regress in this sort of causal series, we have to arrive at the first principle, that in a way it goes out the series. It does not really is only a first principle that is the first place of the series, but it transcends the series. Okay? In that first principle, that is pure being, as the Thomists would say, it is esse tanto, or ipsum esse per se subsistence, it is God. So I'll say that this is the best argument that we have. But for instance, we have also the ontological argument from Anselm. And I believe that we can restate the argument. And for instance, you have talked in another interview that you've conducted with John Connor, and he has a lot of this sort of modal arguments about the existence of God. And I believe that we can make the modal argument of the existence of God also successful. So, but basically, we start whether we can start with the existence of the beings that surround us in our own world, and we can say that they do not justify their own existence, and because of that, we have to ascend to another order of reality that exists by itself.
All right. So basically, what you're saying is like God is the necessary being to which everything is contingent on.
Precisely.
Mm-hmm. All right.
Precisely
cool.
that.
All right. Well, so how would you know though that this contingent being, maybe he is like a pantheist God who's just the ultimate nature of reality, doesn't necessarily have to be a personal one. How would you know that it is the Christian God, not maybe like a Buddhist God or a Hindu God or a Muslim God? How do you know it's the Christian God?
Well, one easy question is that I don't know. What I can say is the following.
Mm-hmm.
There is this author. It is German, but I believe that he was born in Brazil. That philosopher that is called Lawrence Puntel.
Mm-hmm.
And what he sustains in a book of his is that, in a way, for instance, let's see, you and I are both personal realities. We are intelligent. We are having this conversation, and we are personal. So we have a conception of ourselves. And that conception of ourselves, in a way, arises from our dialogue with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So because of that, we can see that the ultimate foundation of reality, that is God, can't be anything below, anything that is not has ontological complex or can't be anything that is I don't know what was the ultimate foundation of reality, that is all the cause of full reality, can't, in order to justify, to give an account of what exists in this case our own existence as personal agents, can't be of an ontological status that is lower than ourselves. I don't know if I'm making myself understood, because God, as the cause of all reality, can't be lower, can't have an ontological status that is lower than the ontological status of its effects. So God has to be, in a way, personal. But for instance, all the theologians of the Via Negativa, for instance, Scoteriusna, I don't know how to say Scoteriusna in English, or Dionysius, they will say that God is not only personal, but it is super personal. So God transcends our own conceptions of personality. But in a way, God has to be personal, because in order to explain our very existence as persons, of these sort of effects that are there is. So this is one explanation. The other explanation is, so because of this, how can God be personal? Okay, how can God, the ultimate foundation of reality, be an absolute, be a personal entity? Joseph Ratzinger, the former Pope.
Mm-hmm.
The former Pope has in its book, The Introduction to Christianity, a most interesting analysis of the personhood relationship. And what he says is that in order to have personhood, we have to have multiplicity. In order to, for instance, in order to have persons, we need to have a dialogue, like the one that we are having here.
Mm-hmm.
And we can only have dialogue, we can only have relationship when we have a sort of multiplicity. So, for instance, we can only have a dialogue because you are you, and I am myself, because we have this sort of difference between ourselves. So, in order for God to be personal, he needs to have in the very core of his unity a sort of diversity. So, in order to be God, in order for the ultimate foundation of reality to be personal, he needs to have a sort of plurality of persons in its very unity, in its very unity of nature. So this is a sort of explanation of why we can expect, or how can we justify that the ultimate foundation of reality is a Trinity.
The Trinity.
Yes. So, and why can we explain? Of course, Christianity is not only the belief that God is a Trinity, is also the belief that the second person of the Trinity incarnated in one particular person, that is Jesus Christ.
Mm.
And what I can say is that, well, for instance, if we look at the world, we see all kinds of crazy stuff, of bad, of suffering, and all that. And in order to justify that, we have to have the hope that God Himself entered in this world, and in the way He assumed our own flesh, and He assumed all the pains that go along with human nature, and so in all the suffering, to live is to suffer, and in a way, all that suffering is also a part of God, since He entered in the history in the person of Jesus Christ. So I believe that those will be my reasons to justify my belief of my reasons to being a Christian, basically.
Mm. I guess that was the multiplicity argument in terms, would be, I guess, what do you call it? It would be necessarily entailed if personhood, I guess, required a dialogue, right? So
yes, precisely that. The notion of personhood is necessarily dialogic. We need to have a dialogue to have a person. For instance, that guy that I spoke about a little minutes before, Frank Tipler, he has in his books he goes a lot about the Turing principle. Do you know the Turing test?
Yeah.
The Turing test. Have you heard about it?
Yeah, but how to know you're not a robot?
Yes. In order to know that you are not a robot, that you have a personality, you need to have a conversation with that person. So, for instance, since we are having this sort of conversation about now, I don't have any doubt that you are a person. Okay, because you are answering to my talk and answering to my questions and all that, and I hope that you also believe that I'm also a person.
I do believe.
So, Only through conversation, only through a dialogue, can we certain that a certain entity is a personal entity. Only through dialogue.
All right. Question. Right. So the Trinity is, of course, three persons. Why not?
Yes.
So two is counted as multiplicity. Four is a multiplicity. Why three?
Well, my answer will be the following. Do you know? Certainly, I don't know if you have already interviewed him, Robert Kuhn, the philosopher.
Oh, not
Robert
yet.
Kuhn.
Not yet.
No, do that. But
We'll do someday.
Robert Kuhn has an extraordinary paper about the Trinity, and what he makes us think is the following. For instance, do you know the definition of Aristotle of God? In Aristotle, God is a self-thinking thought. So what God does, we can ask that, what God does. God thinks, but what God thinks? God thinks about himself. In Aristotle, that is the case. So take the notice, God is a subject that is a thought about himself. So God is a subject that as an act of thinking, that has in himself his own object of thought. So we have this sort of a subject, an act of thinking, and an object of thinking. Okay, we have this sort of trinity. Okay, as the subject, the act of thought, and the object of thought. So, and what Kuhn says in that article is basically, well, God as the subject of that thinking thought, of that thought that thoughts about himself, is God the Father. And the act of thinking is God the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit. And God as the object of that divine thought is the Logos. So the second person of the Trinity, the Son. So we can, in a way, justify or try to comprehend the divine nature in this way. But I will say the following: we can never exhaust or fully comprehend the nature of God, because God is infinite and we are finite. So God is absolute and we are relative. So in a way, that is why, for instance, in all the mystics, in even Aquinas himself, they reach a certain point where they remain silent. So that is the silent night of mysticism. Okay, for instance, Aquinas was traveling, I don't know, for a sort of reunion, but he had a mystical vision, and because of that, he didn't write anything else, and the Summa Theologia remained incomplete. So because of that, because in a way we arrive at a certain place where we can't really say anything else about that ultimate foundation of reality, because he is above all concepts and above all language.
Well, I guess that is the case for most religious thought, right? That the concept of mystery being inevitable, because you recognize that you're a limited being. But I guess, how can you form a coherent belief system if you would have guessed like you're sort of applying wishful thinking through leaps of faith, right? And especially in terms of the things that we can't make sense of, it's include especially in God's nature. So
what can I say? For his because of its very nature, the intellectual inquiry is a never-ending process.
Exactly.
We can always make another question. Why do you do that? Why do you do X? Because of R1. But why do you do R1? Because of R2 and all that. But our time is limited, so we need to, and we can't wait to solve all the problems, in order to live our life. I believe that that is certainly the case. So we can't arrive. So, for instance, in our days, we still don't have the final theory of everything in
Of course, of
a
course.
theory of all they say the quantum gravity of the theory of quantum gravity. But we have still we have to live our own lives in our everyday our everyday life. So we have a kind of urgency that is existential, okay? And because of that, we need to decide how we want to reality be now, not when we have solved all the problems, but now. So how can you, what kind of person you can be, or you aspire to be, okay? And so this is basically the most basic aspect. And what I can say is that, well, in a way, our answer to that is a sort of existential answer. I live my life in this way, trying to be the best person that I can, with this kind of hope that the ultimate foundation of the ultimate foundation of reality is of this sort of nature. Okay, but still, as I have said, along in this in the if this is one path that we have to take, also a sort of existential choice. In the other path, we need to think about it and to really to conceptualize it, and we can and we do that, and we have philosophical systems to explain that. But I will say that so, and really, I believe that we have arguments that really address this kind of issues, and that in a way show us that the ultimate foundation of reality is really what we can call God. But they are not knockout arguments. A philosopher that is named William Vallicella. Do you know William Vallicella? That has a book called titled "A Paradigm Theory of Existence." What he says usually in his blog is that philosophy does not have knockdown arguments. We cannot fully demonstrate the existence of God or the existence of the soul. We can, but we also can't refute their existence. Okay, we don't have arguments that, without any doubt, show that God exists or that God does not exist. We don't have arguments that show that the soul exists or that the soul does not exist. What we have arguments that all the premises are in a way justifiable and that are valid. So their formal logic is valid. Okay, that is the conclusions really follow from the premises. Okay, and that is the best that we can do.
Interesting.
After that, all we can do is to choose and to live our lives as we would like that reality.
Interesting. So what you're saying is that knowing that we are mortals, right, and we have a short lifespan, so you understand there is an existential urgency for us to understand the truth, right, and find it out. And so, but of course, we are limited beings, so we have to settle for the best tentative, I guess, belief system that we could derive from all the evidence that we have in front of us. So yeah,
precisely that. I couldn't say it better. You said it better than myself.
All right. Well, I guess in terms of epistemology, though, how do you know that the belief system you have is the right one, right? But you did say that you you chose this because it would lead to you living leading the best life that you would want. But just because it's what you want doesn't mean it's the truth, right? So there are arguments from skeptics who say that I wouldn't believe something, I wouldn't take truth for granted, so they would establish their beliefs on more like empirical evidence, more foundational in terms of like evidentialist claims. So they would doubt like more metaphysical or just simply rational arguments that lack enough evidence for them. Would you say that you disagree with them?
I'll say the following. It's interesting that you'll say you speak of skeptics that will say that, well, we only have this sort of information that comes through our experience of the world, that is empiricist, basically. But because it is interesting that we have some authors that that called Aquinas an empiricist because for Aquinas all the knowledge must come through the senses. It's the very experience of the world. What I will say is the following. Certainly, our knowledge of the world, being the knowledge of what it is, must start with what is given. So must start with our very experience of the world. But it can't be an experience that is artificially limited. So we need to analyze the experience in all its dimensions, including its metaphysical dimension. And when we think about, not only because our thing is, for instance, when we start to think not only because how are we both of us speaking with one another at this time, but we are starting to think about, for instance, how or why do we exist? Or when you put this sort of question, this sort of metaphysical question, we are opening ourselves to another sort of area of reality, another dimension of reality. And that dimension of reality is there, but we need to open ourselves to it by...
Hello, Discover here to explain our cash back match. Here's how it works. We give you cash back for using your Discover card on the things you were going to buy anyway. Then we match that cash back in your first year. And that's why we call it Cashback Match. Now to recap and say cashback one more time. We match all the cash back you've earned at the end of your first year automatically. Discover. Exceptionally common sense. Learn more at discover.com/match. Limitations apply.
It used to be hard to find the exact auto parts you needed, and that meant spending a lot of time at swap meets. It's a different game now when you can order exactly what you need from eBay Motors. They have 122 million parts, so you can always find the right fitment. Spend less time searching and more time building with the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.
Making the right questions, in not only the questions that the empiricists would say that are all the questions that we can make. For the empiricists, all the questions that we can make are the questions about the material universe, why it is the way it is. But we arrive at a sort of metaphysical question or dimension when we ask why the world exists at all. Not only why the world is the way it is, but why is there a world to begin with? So I will say that we can't have only those limited group of set of questions that the empiricists would maintain that they are the only that are acceptable.
I see. Okay. So I guess that in terms of us as being human beings, we I guess we have to ask the metaphysical questions, and it does require us to really dive more into it and actually I guess find answers that are also metaphysical in nature, and in the do not necessarily have that empirical evidence that we would want them to have, because it is metaphysical in nature, right? So
Precisely that. For instance, if someone says the following: "Show me God."
mhm.
Show me where is God. Show me what it is that X, such that X is the creator of the universe. What I will say is that he does not really is understanding the very notion of God.
Mhm.
God does not present himself as just another object of our own experience, but but God is himself that very ultimate foundation of reality. That is
Mhm.
the condition through which everything that exists can exist. Okay, and because of that, we can't really have an experience of God, an experience that, as I am having the experience of this computer, of this table, or of that tree on the street. Okay, God is not like that, because God is in a way the unlimited horizon of being. Okay, that is the precondition for all possible experience.
All right, cool. All right, then. So now that I've sort of understood your stance on God and why you believe in Him, and your, I guess, your epistemological also take on it. Tell why is there evil in the world? Why sin? Why the fall? If God is perfect, He should have just created a perfect world and be done with it. In this sense, the problem of evil is truly one of the most problematic issues that most theists, especially Christian philosophers, face. So how would you
So, starting with a joke, some months ago, I encountered on Facebook a comic strip, and that presented the following example. Someone said, "Oh God, why didn't you get rid of all the bad people in the world?" And then appeared an angel that gave him a message that where it was the following test. If that was the case, God would also have to get rid of you. So what I'm saying is the following. So basically, what you are alluding is the problem of theodicy. How can we reconcile the existence of a good God with the existence of all the bad things that we see on the world? I will say the following: the Christian answer is usually the following. When God created us with free will, and that is why we are persons. The concept of free will is inseparable of the very conception of personhood. If we didn't have free will, we wouldn't be persons. Okay, for instance, a robot that does only what it is programmed to do is not a person. Okay, so because of that, and because of God chose to create a world with free personal agents, God allowed the possibility of evil in the world. Okay, evil existed in the world primarily because we can do bad things to one another, and unfortunately, most of the time we do. We really don't have to think about it a great deal to see that every one of us is capable of doing a lot of harm to anyone else. Okay, and could God did not create such a world? Surely. But if that was the case, then you and I wouldn't exist. Okay, so if God didn't want that there was suffering in the world, then the gift of existence that we are experiencing right now will not exist. Okay, and that gift of existence does not disappear because there are evil acts in the world. Okay, the gift of creation is stronger, it's more vigorous than the existence of evil in the world. I'll say that the fact that there are evil in the world does not make the existence bad. The gift of existence is bigger than the existence of suffering in the world.
All right. Well, so let me ask you this then. In terms of your understanding of theodicy, and the necessity for, I guess, the possibility of evil, as an ingredient to us being free persons, having free will. Would it have been inevitable for evil to actually for the fall to occur, like in any case scenario, or it could have been actually avoided, the first time around?
Well, as I have said, I do not do a literal reading of the Genesis.
Oh, I see.
The story of
course,
fall, the story of the fall.
Interesting.
Okay. So we can't. For instance, that guy that I named a little while ago, Frank Tipler, in his second book that is called The Physics of Christianity, what the hypothesis that he maintains is that the fall was contingent. It occurred in our own planet, but it didn't have to occur, and in other places of the universe. So the guy maintains that surely other places on the universe we can have intelligent life, okay? And in all the places of the universe, the fall didn't occur. So I'll say the following: the fall was a necessity? No, the fall was not a necessity. Maybe.
But do you believe what
yes.
he says? So you're saying that there's possibly aliens
I will say that
out
it
there.
is a possibility. Maybe that is a possibility.
Interesting.
For instance, all in the final period of the medieval times, I believe it was Nicolas de Cusa. Nicolas de Cusa. I don't know how to say the name in English. Nicolas de Cusa.
Okay.
That maintained that maybe the universe is infinite, and maybe we can have an infinite number of worlds that are inhabited by another intelligent species in the universe. Okay, maybe that is the case. But what I will say is the following: the fall was not a necessity, but the fall occurred, and maybe if the fall didn't occur, you and I, that are speaking with one another in this occasion, wouldn't exist, but because we are these mess up individuals that we are.
Well, a question, right? So what was the fall? Because you seem to be someone who's an old earther, right? You believe in evolution in billions of years, probably the Big Bang too, right?
Yes.
So, and of course, I don't know if you would believe in the literal Adam and Eve. So what was the fall? And the fundamental Christian belief in terms of the fall is that it's actually changed the physics of the universe, in terms of the evil entered into the world, and there's pain and suffering, and the animals started to eat each other, and of course natural evil it occurred, and there's disasters and hunger and famine. So would you say that it's complete, that evil is, or the fall is completely isolated on Earth, and the rest of the universe didn't actually have the fall? So so what's your view on it?
Well, I will say the following. So Frank Tipler, the theory of Frank Tipler is basically that what you have.
Okay.
But I will address the issue following another author, there is the philosopher Paul Ricoeur. You know Paul Ricoeur?
Paul Ricoeur. Yeah.
Paul Ricoeur is a French philosopher that has a book called named The Symbolic of Evil. The Symbolic of Evil. And what he maintains in that book is that in the history, in the myth of creation that we have on Genesis, what we are trying to explain is the very existence of evil in the world. Now, all the myths of creation have this sort of the objective to explain the existence of evil in the world. For instance, another creational myths that of that part of the world, the media of Palestine, maintain that the world was formed after the battle of two gods. For instance, there was a giant serpent that was named Tiamat, and Tiamat was slain by another god, and that god reshaped the body, the remains of Tiamat, and constructed the universe. Okay, so why there was evil in this conception? Because in the way, at the very foundation of reality, there was a crime. There was a murder, and in the Nordic mythology of the Vikings and all that, we also have an example of that. Odin, the old father of the Odin, the Norse mythology, slain a giant, and from the remains of that giant build the universe. Okay, now in in Genesis, we do not have this sort of mythic combat. What we say is that, well, the existence is a gift, and as Genesis says, is good. So God created everything. God created light. The light in God saw that it was good. So, and the very existence of evil that in the story is represented by the existence of the serpent does not makes the reality itself a bad thing. So, for instance, in all these myths, in a way, for instance, in the Gnostic conception, reality is a evil. We will be freer, and if we didn't exist at all. In the end of the Gnostic conception, the end of history, the reality itself will disappear because it is an evil. That is now the Christian and the Judaic Christian conception sees reality. Evil exists. We have a lot of bad things in the world, a lot of suffering, but that does not make reality bad. Reality is always a good thing. For instance, the transcendentals in Thomistic metaphysics are bonum verum. The nature, the very reality is good, is truth, and is unity, is unified. Okay, is unity, and it is also beautiful. The fourth transcendental, that is pulchrum. So the reality is always a good thing. Okay, so I'll say these will be my answer to your question.
Right, that's pretty cool. Okay, so in this sense, though, your views on the biblical narrative is, of course, like simply in you have written by man, right? Like written by the Jews, the Israelites, and then so. What is your views on biblical literalists, though, who actually have, I guess, like have a leap of faith in terms of the supernatural occurrences in the Bible, or at least the I guess from third party scientists' point of view, very unscientific, or goes against the evidence that most scientists see today?
Well, I will say the following. It's interesting to see that Jesus himself didn't wrote anything. We never in the Gospels we don't have the the handwriting of Jesus himself. And we do not have any description whatsoever, as long as I can remember, that Jesus wrote something in some piece of paper. Okay. So in the Gospels are the narratives that were written by the disciples. Okay. So the Bible is what is the Bible? The Bible is a collection of books that were written by men. We that have faith believe that they were inspired by God, by the Holy Ghost, by the Holy Spirit, but still they were not written by God himself. They were written by men, and that is because we can't interpret. We can't make a literal interpretation of what is written, and that is why the book is always, I don't know how to say this, the book is always, in a way, the book presents himself, it is because the book is not a literal description of what existed, of what happened, that the book is constantly appealing us, making us think. Because if the book, for instance, if Genesis was a description of how the universe was created by the means of natural physics, well, if that was the case, we'll go to the Genesis, we'll read the book, and we'll have the correct theory of the Big Bang. So all the physicists will be out of job, for instance. But since that is not the case, through different ages, a man in, I don't know, the 5th century, or in the 19th century, or in the 20th century, or in the 21st century, or in the future, can read the Genesis and discover something new, something that speaks directly to him and speaks directly to his life, and that makes him think about himself, and to think about his life, and to think about his relationship with one another, and that I believe is the most important thing.
All right, awesome. So how about Jesus Christ, right? You are Catholic, so you believe in the incarnation of Christ and of how he's fully divine, fully human at the same time, right? Then do you believe in of course, you probably believe also in penal substitution?
Well, I'll say the following. William Vallicella has an interesting test about that very aspect that you ask. What he sustains is the following: in order for God to know everything, in order for God to really know what it is to be a human being. For instance, there is a text from Thomas Nagel. I believe that is the philosopher is Thomas Nagel. That the title is the following: What it is like to be a bat.
Yes.
What it is like to be a bat. And it is impossible for us to know what it is like to be a bat. Only a bat knows what it is like to be a bat, to see the world from bat eyes, or to see a world from cat eyes. I don't know how my cats see the world. It's impossible to me. I can imagine to be from the point of view of a cat, but in doing that, I am still a human person, trying to think or to imagine how a cat sees the world. I'm not a cat. I'm always a human. So, in order for God to know truly how a human person sees the world, truly how a creature understands the world that God has created, he had to enter the world, to see the world from our own perspective. And only through that can God really knows this dimension of reality. Okay? I'm, for instance, I can describe to you how it is like to eat a strawberry cake.
One moment though, so you're saying that God does not know how to be human unless he actually became fully human?
Precisely
Isn't
that.
that a challenge to his omniscience?
Well, I will say that God can knows what he God knows what he can. God surely knows what he can know from his point of view as the ultimate foundation of reality. But some things, for instance, um, you can feel pain. I can feel pain. God, as the ultimate foundation of reality, as being itself, can't feel pain. So you'll say it's a limitation of God. Well, certainly not. But I'll say that God could know what it is to have pain in himself before he entered in this world as Jesus Christ. Okay, so in order to in order to have a full experience of reality, God had to enter himself into this plane of existence that is our home.
Okay, well, I guess God can know. You said God can know what He can know, right? Because
Yes.
He can't know what. So can God? God can't know what humans can know unless He actually becomes a human, and then.
Precisely that. Precisely that.
Mhm.
Precisely that.
But is it? I guess like I'm not really sure how to frame the argument for like put the limits on God. Like it's something like how would you sort of reconcile the paradox of like can God lift or make a rock he cannot lift? Like what can God lie? Or how would you answer those?
So I'll say the following. Regarding the paradox of the stone, as you have said, I will say that a stone that is so heavy that an omnipotent being can't lift is an impossibility. It's not a real stone that could happen to exist. So I'll say, can God create a stone so heavy that even he can't lift? I'll say no, because that is a kind of stone that can't exist. A stone that is so heavy that an omnipotent being can't be able to lift is not a possible thing. So can God lie? Well, God in the classical theism is goodness itself, and to be good is to be true. And God is also truth itself, and so certainly because of that, God cannot lie. God cannot lie. So this, but we have to see that this kind of what appear to us are limitations are not really limitations, because we can't do these sort of things because we are finite. Because we are finite, we have a range of actions that we can perform that God, because it is being itself, can perform. Okay, but they are not limitations. In a way, we can perform this sort of actions because we ourselves are limited.
So I
This would
guess
be
like
my
in
answer.
terms of like how you would define omniscience and omnipotence, though it's not really like omnipotence isn't like God can do everything, but it's just
God can do everything that is logically possible. Not
for
everything whatsoever.
God, I guess.
God can't do that 2 plus 2 is equal to 5. God can't do a round square. That are a logical impossibility. That are contradictions. Okay.
Well,
And God.
well, a friend of mine, an atheist, he I guess he was an atheist before, but actually, he always mentioned about God having no free will, right? Because if God was God in the first for all eternity, he never had a choice to not be God, and so he is bound to be God, and I guess determined to be God. So God Himself is not.
Well, I will say the following. What appears to be in the argument that friend sustains is that there is some sort of disconnection between God and God himself as a person, and his nature. Okay, for instance, but in classical theism, God is his nature. Okay, God is its very nature. God is its very divinity. God is divinity itself. Okay, so we have this. So because why? Because God is ontologically simple. Because so God is what it is, and can't be anything else because it is what it is, namely God Himself. Okay, so we have this sort of absolute identity between God and His nature and His being. God is His nature and is its being. Okay, so we have this sort of identity between being, suppositum, personhood, and existence in God. So God is what it is and can't be anything else. That regarding God Himself, but from the point of view of its effects. So if God could create or not create this world, or could God create another world, and not this world that we happen to live in? So the classical theist response is that certainly yes, God could have created another world, or God could have not created any world whatsoever. And so if that was the case, God would be, what would exist was only God, and nothing more. But because God is goodness itself, usually the argument goes like this: because God is goodness itself, and goodness is diffusive, God chose to create and to allow us to participate in the gift of being.
All right, awesome. And so, I guess you mentioned goodness, right? And of course, when God created everything, He also included He said that when He made man, right? We sort of was proud of and said we were good as well. But being creatures of sin, due to the necessity of it, we I guess because we have free will. So what is our role here? I know as human beings on Earth. What are we supposed to do here? And what I guess what is waiting for us in the afterlife? You probably believe in purgatory, right, as well, and in postmortem redemption?
Yes. Well, I will say that the priest from my parish usually has this awesome definition that he uses that I will remember here. What he says is the following: what God wants us from all of us is that each and all of us can be the best person, the best version of itself. So what we have to do with our lives is to be the best version, the best version that we can be. Okay, only that. So what God wants us to do is that we are happy, and that we make the best that we can with ourselves and with the talents that we have, and that we spread goodness. Basically, that only that. We have this free will. We can even renounce God Himself, and we do not have a plan. That is, we have the instructions of how to live our life. Basically, today I have to do this, tomorrow I have to do that. We don't have that. So in a way, we live in the dark. But dark as it may be, we have to try to do the best in our everyday lives, and that best is trying to be the best version of ourselves that we can be, in trying to do the best for one another. So trying to help my brother that is suffering, or that needs my help, and all that. I will say that this is what is expected from us. Trying to do the best that we can.
Right. Cool.
And yes, I do believe in the afterlife, because we can't really attain.
But I guess
joy.
Would you be? Do you believe in an eternal hell, or just? Or do you believe in universalist or limited atonement?
I believe. Well, it's a tricky question, the one that you have asked. I believe the following. I believe that God is good. I believe that God is goodness itself. I believe that God died in order to redeem us. Okay, and because of that, I believe that also that we are free, and that we can renounce God, if that is the case, forever. Okay, but that that plane of existence is not designed by God, and is not desired by God. Okay, it is a sort of end that the soul or we ourselves create for ourselves. Okay, God is always open. God is always awaiting us. Okay, God is like the the story that Jesus told us, that about the father with the two sons. How we say that in the son that goes away, and the prodigal son. Okay, God is the father that always is awaiting the prodigal son. Okay, and God, and when the prodigal son, that is a moment of enjoyment for God himself. But we ourselves can decide never to return. That is a possibility, and that is a possibility that God accepts, because it gave us free will. But I believe that in a way God did not condemn any one of us. Okay, God wants to save us all, but we can renounce his salvation. That is a possibility. We can say no to God. That is a possibility.
All right, awesome. And I guess like just to end the podcast, man, because I wished I could have asked you more. And maybe you could come back on a second episode. But so let's finalize this. So I guess it's more of like an existentialist question of, so how can I live the best I guess how can I be the best version of myself, right? Of course, you read the Bible, meditate, and have be a good person. But how would you view it? I guess in terms of like to every person, because we all have unique journeys.
Well, I have made a lot of mistakes in my life, so what I'm going to say is not really. I'm not using myself as an example. So, but why I will say the following: everyone has talents. No, also the parable of the talents. Okay, so what we can do is to look at ourselves and try to discover our greatest talents, and try to make the best of those talents. Okay, if we are good at studying, I don't know, we can try to be the best students that we possibly can. Okay, to study as hard as we can, to try to learn the best that we can about the world that's around us. Okay, and also trying to do the best for one another. Okay, once someone asks for our help, we should try to do it. Try to help them. Try to help them, and not to figure out some excuse not to do something something other in order not to help the other person. So I'll say the following: we should try to live our talents fully, and try to help one another as much as we can.
All right, awesome. Well, Jose, it's been awesome to having you on the podcast, man. Is there anything you would like to promote? Like a YouTube channel or a book you're writing?
No, I do not have anything like that.
All right. Well, I guess is there anything you would like to tell the audience? Before just to end the podcast, like a final message, maybe.
I don't know. I don't have a lot to say to anybody. What I can say, well, let's try to learn as much as we can in this life, and trying to be the best persons that we can to one another. That is basically is basically all. That is basically the best that we can do.
Well, what would you say to like someone who's an atheist who's saying like, no, Jose, you're totally wrong, and like crazy?
maybe so, but I like to think that I'm right.
No, we all. All right, well, man, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's been great having you on, and I wish you can come back on, man, like tackle a more specific topic. I guess that was sort of an overview of your belief system. And yeah, glad to have you here. So that's the end of it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. This is your host, Elmo Ador Jr. And thank you for listening in. And please subscribe. Please follow us on Facebook. Please follow this. Please. Thanks.
More than 1 in 3 people will face cancer in their lifetime. Unfortunately, fear can stop you from getting your cancer screening, but it won't stop cancer. Early detection can save your life. Don't wait for symptoms to appear to act. Cancer screening is safe, effective, and accessible for everyone, including free or low-cost screening programs. Go to cancerscreeninfo.com right now for free screening resources and recommendations from the American Cancer Society. Don't wait. Early detection can save your life. Go to cancerscreeninfo.com today. Cancerscreeninfo.com.
It takes a lot of ingredients to fix or build a car, like cooking, but without the frozen dinner easy way out. eBay Motors has 122 million parts. It's always the right fitment, so you can follow any recipe to a T. Whether it's a vintage Italian coupe that's classic like Grandma's meatballs, or a German luxury car that's as complicated as Oma's rouladen, to cook up something great in the garage, use the eBay Motors app or visit ebaymotors.com. Let's ride.